No, I got it, Tim.
Oh, thanks, Thing. Oh, awesome, man. Thanks. My name's Lisa. I'm alcoholic and an addict.
Hi, Lisa.
Oh, man. That story. It's so interesting. We've done this before. We've talked maybe once before, and it's different. Anytime I hear the story or parts of the story, it's different. And that's one thing I've experienced in Alcoholics Anonymous is that over time, I learn more about what my alcoholism is, what other people, what their experience is with addiction. And just when I think I know something, I have a new experience. And so I appreciate the opportunity to share. When I ran into Steve, I've been struggling with some stuff, and I realized that I needed to do something different, but I was afraid. I just kept doing the same thing over and over. Oh, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. Because I was afraid to do something different. And when I get stuck in recovery, one thing that I found that I do that actually really helps is that I increase my meetings. And what I realized is after coming out of COVID and having a job that's, in front of a computer, is that I missed community. I missed connections. And for me, I feel like a huge part of recovery is being part of something, being seen, being heard, being there for someone, right? And so I was like, well, what the fuck? I'm sorry. Okay. Well, what are you going to do about it, right? And so it wasn't going to another Zoom meeting. It was like, I'm going to go to as many in-person meetings as I can, and I'm going to do it for 30 and 30. And it was amazing how much it changed my life so rapidly, because I went from anxious, fearful, uncertain, afraid, to at ease, like what Mark talked about. When I started using and drinking at a young age, man, it worked for me. It worked in the sense that I needed just like that. It popped the cork to take the pressure off. I had this sense of grounding. Honestly, it's like meditation is for me today. It's like, dude, okay, get back down, and so what I've been able to learn over a few years here is going back to the basics of the tools that I did and I used when I came in here, and when things get hard, just doing the basics. So we read a story. So my home group is Broadview Women's Big Book Study. It's in Shoreline at the Phoenix Club. It is 8:30 in the morning until 10, and you can wear PJs, ladies, if you want to. We'd love to have you. We camp every summer. We really believe in the fellowship of meeting outside the meeting. And for me, that was learning how to be social and not drink, how to connect with people, because I really sucked at that, and that has been my home group since 2002. And my kids have grown up in that room. I have 3 kids, never seen me how to take a drink. They grew up with another friend of mine's kids, a few actually other women who had kids that they've grown up in recovery. And see, I grew up in a household where it was drugs and alcohol were the norm, and that's what I thought was how it was for everybody. And it's just with this whole thing that's happened in our family, we've had a lot of drama, and whether it's dad or whether it's brother or whether it's kid or whether it's my mom being sick or whatever, right? Have the ability to lean back on Alcoholics Anonymous. And Because, you know, when I came in here, I was 24 years old and drinking didn't work. I was at that place where it was like, it no longer gave me the sense of power. It did the things for me that I just described, right? Connections with others, uh, feeling part of something, courageous, all these things that, like, if you talk to normies, they don't feel in control when they drink. They don't feel powerful. They don't feel funny. They don't feel like, you know, and that was one sign that helped me understand what my alcoholism looked like. Another thing is that I had a measuring stick in my family that was quite big. And so I came from a family where my dad was an alcoholic and my mom was mentally ill, and I was an only kid. And my job is to just make everything okay. And if you had that kind of pressure, you'd want to escape too, right? You know? And I didn't really start doing that intentionally until I was around 12. But I was the kid that would hang underneath the tables at the parties that the parents would have and grab the drinks on the top of the table. And, you know, I just, there was something there. And I'd seen that in the people in my life. Yeah. And so what I did is I learned how to, like, how can I drink? How can I use people, whatever, to feel better? And the focus is it can never get out of control. So I would switch. So I learned, like, okay, I'm getting on the school bus for middle school, drunk in the morning, and oops, overshot at that time. I just got to figure out how to, one less drink, right? One less joint, right? Just taper it back just a little bit. That's the problem, right? I'm not, dude. And I was doing this in junior high and high school, and, but I was able to get away with it because I didn't get into trouble. I was a smart student. Me, I had different groups of friends. I was the chameleon. People didn't know. I had these different areas of my life, and I kept that separate. Thank you very much. And that's what helped for a really long time until it didn't. And I got to the point where I could drink, and nobody, like, even my mom couldn't tell I was drunk. I could drink a fifth of alcohol and I didn't get drunk. That's another symptom of the disease, right? Drink, and for me, I drank and it was unpredictable. I didn't know what was going to happen. I could be stone sober after a fifth, and I could be flat on my ass with one beer in the same weekend. It just didn't make sense. The part that's really important that I find is that, and I continue to do that over and over, taking the risk. It was more, I just fuck it. I need the break, whatever. I don't care what happens. I get to that point, And when I came in these rooms at 24 and by way of my work, I got intervened on at work. That was a struggle for me. And so, but I was making choices in my life that I feel like didn't have anything. I wasn't drinking when I was doing these things. I wasn't drinking when I was making these decisions. I wasn't drinking when these things happened. Like, I'm, with this guy. It's the guy, right? It's the job. It's the house. It's the, and in this instance, it was an ex-boyfriend where we shared a house and a gun, and I didn't want him having it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take it, and like, okay, I'll take it to work. That's the best, like somebody offered to keep it at work, and I worked at a prison. That's where my best thinking got me. And then my boss found out. And she had 15 years in the program at the time. And so she sat me down and said, you have two choices. You can either be arrested, be on federal charges for a gun on like government property, or you can go get a drug and alcohol assessment. And you know, they talk about in the book where like you hit these turning points. Go on to the bitter end, accept spiritual help. And I asked if I could think about it. I asked if I could think about it. Because there was part of it like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. Because it's not this there. That's not tied. Those choices are not tied, right? I became so black and white in my thinking. And so, but we read this book. We read this story, Gutter Bravado. It's, I don't know. We read cover to cover in about 14 months, and then we do it again. And so I've done the book a few times, and I appreciate the stories because sometimes, you know, that's how we connect with other people. And I remember a guy I worked with, he had 12 years of sobriety, and he could smell alcohol when I came in on my shift at the juvenile prison. Said, hey, you want to take this book and read the first 164 pages? It's your weekend, and come back and let me know what you think, you know? Oh, I couldn't read those. It was too hard. Why don't you read the stories? Tell me what you think, you know? Like, I had these people in my life. They were touchstones, and I didn't realize how big they were going to be in my life, you know? But, and you know, on a side note, what's really trippy is that probably about 2019, raising kids, didn't get a chance to go to Abigail's. It's in the morning, 3 little kids, crazy time. But I got the opportunity to go back to Abigail's because they were back in school. And here I go, I show up in Abigail's, and I hear this woman across the other side of the room. And it's my former boss. And she's talking about 35 years. Oh, wow. And I just get goosebumps, man, you know? And it's like, you know, she was that first person that introduced me to the program. I ended up going and getting an assessment. I didn't believe the assessment, but I went anyway. And then I realized I had an opportunity. See, because I had everybody in my dad's family had died. By the time I was 27, my dad, my grandpa, my grandma, my uncle, my aunt, they had all died of alcohol-related deaths. My dad, they found him sitting on a couch with a bottle in his lap. He was dead. 51. I have now outlived my dad, you know? And drug addiction on my mom's side of the family. And I grew up with that kind of stuff. And so, you know, coming into these rooms was really, really tough. And so, you know, these are these people that plant a seed that I get, you know? And so I saw her, talk to her, and it was like, wow, I feel like those are God shots for me, right? And so here I am, I'm like going to meetings every day. Like I said, I'm doing 30 and 30, and I'm not just going to online, I'm going to in person, and I'm going to different meetings because I needed different. And so when I did that, I ended up starting to run into people that I hadn't seen. Because, you know, I had a home group that was like a lot of people, right? And here I go, I'm running with Steve, fuck, you know? And like, dude, that's a blast from the past. And this is what was happening in every single meeting for me, is I was running into people that I forgot about, you know? And that sense of community and connectedness, man, it just came back so quickly. It blew me away. I didn't realize I had that. And so what I found is that, you know, when you go to new meetings, you know, and they share, people go, hey man, you wanna chair a meeting? So here I am getting asked to go to different meetings and chair meetings and meet different people. And it's like, dude, it's a breath of fresh air. It's like, and that's sometimes I got to mix it up, you know? Um, because if you had the husband I had, but yeah, and so we read this story called Gutter Bravado, and it's funny because it's like he was given two options by the court: get help or go to jail, and his journey towards teachability began. And it like that's where we started off at 8:30 in the morning, and I'm like, so what I do is frequently I just underline what resonates for me. Always the object was to go out and get wasted. I felt the key to successful drinking was practice, practice, practice. I was becoming generally dissatisfied, but I didn't know that the problem was within me. At times, raw and exciting, my existence revolved around drama. Liquor was not the only recreational substance available there. I was no stranger to any of them. After a few drinks, I felt more normal and in control. My jokes were funnier. The guys were cuter. I shot better pool, or I played darts. Actually, that's what I did. And then, and the jukebox played better tunes. I could look people in the eye and mingle with the best of them. I could do that. That is that. I totally get that. And then, and then I had a growing uneasiness, and it became a vicious cycle. My only sense of relief was in the bottle, but even then, that was beginning to fail me. My dreams had long since faded. My direction was unclear. My confidence lost, and the drinking would not restore them as it once had. There were times when I would try to live without drinking, but it was difficult, often ending in the most inappropriate times. Planned abstinence was extremely stressful. I bring that up because I planned to stop drinking all the time. And because I planned to stop drinking all the time and I could do that, then I don't have a problem. So why not? I'll just start drinking again. That's what made sense to me, you know? And the downward spiral of my life began making smaller circles. And I really like that because it gets smaller and smaller. I began to feel like a clown juggling too many balls. Each ball represented a problem I was keeping up in the air. My arms were weary and I knew I couldn't keep up much longer, but I was not about to give up. My pride and ego wouldn't let me. I looked to all of those other things, boss, job, everything, as the source of my problem. And while overlooking the most basic problem, it was my drinking and myself. I desperately wanted off this merry-go-round, but I had no idea how to do it. You know, and this is what we read this morning, man. It's like pretty amazing. And then I had to get to the point where I was uncomfortable enough to want to do something different, you know? And that for me was, you know, coming in these rooms, going back out, coming in as a periodic drinker, which means, you know, you can drink for a period of time and then something bad happens and then you stop for a while and then, okay, it's better again and I'm going to pick up again. That window got smaller and smaller and smaller. And when I get time and come out, I couldn't get continuous time. And by the time the last period of my drinking, you know, my boyfriend is in Africa working and he's sober and I'm like, I'm an alcoholic. I'm going to start drinking again, by the way. And I'm going to paint the house while you're gone. so he comes home and you guys, he was like, I can't have alcohol in the house. It's like, what the fuck? Really? Like, maybe I should just move out. That was my solution. Really. I mean, that's what made the most sense to me. And then I had a spiritual experience. A guy from my home group was killed in a motorcycle accident. And there's something that kind of sparked that of going, I had this experience that was something was saying like, what are you waiting for? What are you practicing for? You know, what are you preparing for? Like, I had to do these things before I could stop drinking. I don't know, you know? And so I went to his funeral, and it was the most amazing thing. I think there was 500 people, 600 people there. And, um, and you just saw how it works. You could feel how it works in the room, the energy. And what I realized is that it wasn't going to get any better if I didn't stop drinking. And so I was just fucking pissed off, and I went to meetings, and I didn't go to my home group for 6 months because I wasn't going to tell them I relapsed. I was resentful at them anyway because nobody called me while I was gone. And and I put some time together, and I got a sponsor. I got a sponsor who took me through the book. And that was, you know, from the very first blank page all the way through. And she took me through a way that her sponsor took her sponsor, you know, she had been through, and there was a lineage there. And it worked. It worked this time. I needed something that was concrete. It was something that I could do. Just tell me what to do. Tell me what I need to think about. Tell me what I need to write. But the questions that were asked were too fucking hard for me to understand. List 5 things that I'm powerless over alcohol and 5 things my life is unmanageable every day, and leave it on my phone. And then I'll tell. Then she's like, and then I'll tell you what, you don't have to call me anymore. And they have to be different every day. And I'm like, damn, man, you know, same kind of thing. What do you have control over? And what does God have control over? That's a really interesting list. You should try it sometime. Like, what do I have control? What do they, you know? And a 4th step that was a checklist. It wasn't writing a whole bunch of pages. It was like one line that I wrote for every person. And it started with resentment, and then it went to harms, and then it was a fears list, and then it was sex. And boom, 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 boom. We just went through it that way. And that really worked for me. I needed structure. The joke with Mark and I is that he's like, I would totally drink if I had your program, because I had to go to a meeting every day, sometimes twice, because I just needed a break from my head, and I needed a safe space. It was totally different. And you know, I was fortunate to be able to find that. And then there came a point when I was in my 9th step that my sponsor had said, you know, she had said this in the very beginning, are you willing to give away what you've been given? And I said, sure, not knowing what I was saying, sure for. And I have found that working with others has been the bright part of my life. It's pretty amazing to sit across the table from another woman or someone that you work with, and it just helps me remember the things I forget. There's a lot of things that I forget. My disease tells me I don't have a disease. My disease tells me I don't need meetings. My disease says, you know, all the time. And again, that's kind of back to like, how does it show up for me? And so being able to string some days together and then some years together, and through that, you know, I met my husband. I was 6 days sober, and he was 6 months. He had more time than me. And you know, we ended up getting married, and we had kids, and then it wasn't all rosy. It was a struggle at times. And what my experience was with that is that I found this freedom and this fellowship and this way of life with people in the rooms that I could actually use with people that I went to high school with. And it expanded out into to my world and my relationships. And him and I grew apart, you know, and so, you know, I was ready to kick him to the fucking curb because he was crazy. And, you know, that's what ended up having to happen. And each time that something like that's, I don't want to say big deals, but events, it's amazing how much I learn about myself and the world, you know. I can just think about like in 2017, like he was talking about, and at that point in time, it was like our son had just gotten out of a treatment center from being violent, and my daughter was in the hospital. Our daughter, she had a ruptured intestine, 12 years old. My mom is in the hospital across Seattle, just having part of her lung removed for cancer. And it's Christmas. And I went between hospitals for over a month, back and forth. And you know what? Those fucking women in the rooms would just come wherever I was and bring me a meeting. Whether it was in the waiting room out there, was in the hallway or whatever, they came over and wrapped my kids' presents for me, like for us. You know, at that point in time, I didn't have a partner that I feel like I could rely on. And now I understood why. Because he was using, right? And there's been times in my recovery, as he had mentioned, that I had to make a choice. And it became pretty clear when it was like my recovery or his recovery, my sanity, his recovery. And so, you know, I learned more about where the disease of addiction in family systems can take you, you know. So in all of those kinds of experiences, it's just, I'm blown away that it's like you guys keep me sober. I keep showing up and you show me how to do it. I trust in you guys when I can't trust myself. I rely on you when I don't know what to do. And it's really important for me to be transparent with people in my life. Because honesty, openness, and willing are huge. It saves my ass. And that means saying the things that I think, telling on myself to people, having a sponsor I'm accountable to. I'm in the middle, you guys. I have a sponsor and I have sponsees, and I'm part of something. I'm like I'm in the center, right? And so my challenge today is how do I navigate sobriety? It's not about drinking or using. It's all about how do I get the best life out of what I got? And it starts coming here. And then it continues with just being a member of society and showing up and being a service to people. So, not bad, huh? Okay, cool. So thanks for letting me be here, you guys. I hope you guys got some. Good job.